I apologize. I'm a little bit sniffly. My
It's
cat's
okay. Me too. It's been like, I don't know. I think it's just allergies out here. We're in the Midwest, so it's like,
ah,
so yeah,
he's from the Midwest.
yeah. Unfortunately, so.
Hey, no, you are not humping the cat right now. Stop it, dude.
You know what?
Sorry.
There's all it's no, it's fun because there's always an animal. Either they like the attention where they'll kind of crawl in the middle of the camera, or they'll be doing something off and they're like, "Hey, knock it!" Like they're
Yeah,
yelling off, and it's just it wouldn't be a proper podcast without an animal trying to do something. So
yeah. My cat Rocket is a terrorist, so I'm sorry if you hear him.
no, you're good. How was your guys' weekend?
Great.
Good. That's
Busy.
going
I
good.
can't even remember what we did. I think we went to a birthday party last night and I drank some Malort, unfortunately.
That's okay. I watched Backrooms.
Mm.
That was good. It was good.
Yeah, we went to the premiere of it
Oh yeah.
out in LA. It was great.
What'd you think of it?
I loved it. I think it was everything I had hoped for it. I'm not really a big fan of jump scare horror, not because it's scary, but it's cheap, in my opinion. I like a slow burn.
Me too.
I think like the absence of an overt, you know, creature or a monster until the end is always really cool.
I think so too. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it took it to like a whole nother because I mean I'm used to the YouTube series that he
Yeah.
had, and I loved it. I thought it was very very well done. But then it got personal and psychological, and I went okay. Now it's starting to kind of develop more, and I really loved it. I think
Yeah,
I'm excited. So
Mars still hasn't seen it, unfortunately.
No,
all right,
this,
Mars. I
this
won't
is-
ruin anything for you, but it's worth watching, and it's very much an A24 type movie if you're familiar with A24. So
Yes.
Yeah, I
I
loved
expect
it.
it to be great.
I'm I'm really excited for Kane Parsons to continue to do this thing that he's been after for years, and I'm just like in such a weird way, I feel like super proud of him. Like, oh, look at you, man! Like you got this huge movie deal from A24
Hmm.
after just working by yourself in Blender for years, and like,
Very self-made,
yeah,
Yeah.
which is like the point of.
and he's like 20,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, he was
That's
talking
insane.
he was talking about how he did the score and everything. He also mapped out everything in Blender for the set designers
yeah, he did
in
like
pre-production.
a shot list in Blender.
Yeah, that kid makes me feel so inept, but also like I'm stoked that, I feel like movies will be better in the future because of it.
I
Just
think
really a
that too.
renaissance man, yeah.
Yeah.
and even with like Obsession, seeing those guys kind of cut their teeth with comedy
Yeah.
and doing these sort of like YouTube shorts or whatever, and then with Milk and Cereal, that I was just like, whoa,
I
like
still haven't seen that one.
it's so good. It's
It's been on my list. And also the guys who made Talk to Me and Bring Her Back, they were
Mhm.
also YouTubers, which was super cool. And we met them at the Bring Her Back premiere because I have a friend who works for American Cinematheque, so I harass her every time I want to go to a screening. And yeah, those guys are super funny, super cool, and they're working on a movie right now about like Mexican death wrestling, I think is the term, right?
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
it's like extreme
Yeah,
wrestling.
extreme deathmatch wrestling, that's it.
Yeah.
That's I'm excited to see that. And is it Talk to Me? Was that the one with the
Yeah.
with the hand?
Yeah.
That it really nailed home just because it was around the anniversary when I lost my mom, and it was like when I watched it, it was very much like close to that, and I was still kind of feeling a lot of those emotions from that, and then that was just like it just was like totally hit me harder than I expected seeing that, and it just totally just blew my mind and just brought up a lot of emotions and feelings and shit like that. And I like a movie that can do that where it's
Yeah.
like it's not a cheap thrill. I'm like I need something I can just kind of ponder on and kind of soak in. And I think Backroom really did that to me. I went like I was just like reeling over it and just going holy shit. And I was supposed to be on another podcast to talk about that, but there was a planning issue, and me and my brother were talking about Backrooms, and I think there's elements of. Have you heard the story, the yellow wallpaper?
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's from like 1890 something, and it's this lady who was kind of had psychological issues, and she's kind of laying in bed and keeps staring at this ugly yellow wallpaper.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking
Okay,
about.
so you know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about,
that
where
sounds really
uh,
familiar.
she keeps seeing this outline of a woman, and as she kind of tries to rip away the wallpaper, she kind of slowly starts kind of getting this mental breakdown, and it's she kind of sees herself in this person, but it's not quite her. And I think there's elements of that in Backroom, which again I don't want to give anything away to Mars, but I
Yeah.
think there's that it's you're here, but there's someone on the other side of the wall that is you, but not quite you. I don't want to give anything
Yeah.
away, but
An
there is.
unspoken, yet somehow true
Yeah.
reflection of the self.
I think the uncanny valley is always like the
Yeah.
coolest trope in horror.
Yeah.
Also, I was gonna say back to your thing about Talk to Me. I had the same kind of experience except with their second movie because Talk to Me came out before I lost my mom.
Yep.
But afterwards, about a year later or so, was when Bring Her Back came out, and there's a lot of parental loss in that one, and that one was very. I was crying in the theater.
Yeah.
John can attest.
That one is.
That one was it was really sad. I think it was more of like a horror. I'm sorry, I gotta show you my cat. He's
No,
looking
go ahead. Yeah.
he's looking me in the eye the entire time I'm talking.
That's a cute cat.
He's just as much a part, and so is the other one.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, they're
There she
not
is.
control right now. They're very much.
Yeah, so if things get knocked over and I yell, it's because
No, it's no problem at all. So,
But
but
truly,
yeah, let's go and jump into the music. Thank you for letting me yap about horror movies. I love a good horror movie, and I saw the Rob Zombie trio shirt, and I was hoping he talked about doing a hockey movie. Like he was going to make it this sort of like early hockey when everything was just all blood and bones breaking, and I'm upset that he never got around to making something like that.
could have had really good Zamboni death.
I do feel like I think he's a terrible scriptwriter generally, just as far as dialogue goes. I love his movies.
Yeah, me too.
I think Lords of Salem, oddly enough, is his best script, which is
I agree.
strange for me to say, but
Yeah.
I digress. I think he'd do well writing a early hockey movie script. Like, yeah, they talk like this.
Yeah.
They talk like
He
this.
should make horror movie
Yeah.
Rivals. That's what Rivals is.
Yeah,
Actually.
that's what it's missing.
I still haven't watched it, but I'm just assuming.
Heated rivalry.
Boys kissing in hockey.
Yeah.
I think he was. I think I've always said this about Halloween, where if he just created something that wasn't in the Halloween universe and created a whole nother franchise or a totally separate, killer or slasher or whatever, I think it would have been better. But I think like if it was just something completely original, here's a new, slasher character creature thing, and here's kind of his backstory and shit like that. I think it would have been better if he didn't just try and go, well, let's make my version of Halloween. And
Yeah, I think his greatest strength is honestly his ability to create fun characters.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think that should just be his job. Make the characters. Let other people create the
How
script.
many people love Captain Spaulding and have never seen House of a Thousand?
That's
It's
fair.
one of the greatest, and that DVD intro in the menu is probably one of the greatest 10 minutes that I
Yeah.
remember when I bought them, and I just sat there and watched him as Captain Spaulding's just yapping at the camera the whole time, and I'm just like, that's hilarious.
Yeah,
Satan.
My mom and I had like a big physical media collection when I was a kid, and she would tell me, she's like, okay, these movies are off limit. Night Stalker and House of a Thousand Corpses. The only issue with that is that my mom didn't really believe in babysitters past the age of like 6 or 7. And she just left me at the house when she went clubbing. I mean, very, very 90s goth mom of her. So like the second she told me not to watch House of a Thousand Corpses, I'm like, all right, when's the next time you're going to the Mercury? I'll be watching it.
Yeah, I'll be sneaking it and putting it in and just being like, okay, watch the door, make sure nobody,
Yeah, I think she came across some of my art, and I had tried to recreate the Fishman, and she was like, you watched it, didn't you? I'm like, no, this is just a weird boy mermaid.
totally made that up in my head, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so Sour Tongue, amazing, amazing. You got two EPs out. You got a handful of singles. Everything's under Metropolis Records. Is that right?
Yes, we signed to them when we, uh, or right after we put out Soap,
Hmm.
which was after Sweet Talk and before Final Girl.
December
Sorry, I'm trying to,
23rd.
yeah,
Okay.
December. And then we, yeah, Final Girl was our first official release on the label, but we re-released everything on the label.
How did they get a hold of you? I like their. It's really unique because I think I've always followed Metropolis Records since being a teen. Because of KMFDM, Skinny Puppy, the Goth Industrial, and your music is not that, which I think is a huge jump for Metropolis Records, and I love that they kind of took a uh, in, uh, I'm not going to say risk, but totally shifting, going, let's bring in this band of I mean, and your guys' genres, like, you'll go from grunge to country to garage to a little bit of everything, which is what I love about your music. Tell me about them contacting you and going, hey, be part of our label.
Yeah, so originally, this is kind of a long-winded explanation, but there's some context that makes it relevant. So Sasha from KMFDM, longtime family friend, he's my godfather. So it was a little bit of a nepo connection, not in the sense that like we were guaranteed anything. But we had a group chat with my mom and some of our other close family friends and Sasha and Lucia of KMFDM. And one day I just kind of sent Soap in there because I just wanted to show my friends and family what I was up to. I'm like, hey, here's a song I made. Check it out if you like it. Whatever. And then I was at Home Depot and I got a phone call from my family friend Delaney, and she said, hey, buddy, have you checked the group chat? I'm like, no, what's up? And she said, oh, Sasha just offered you a spot opening along the West Coast tour for them when they come to America. This was 2023. So it was like late 2023 when that happened. And I was like, oh, no, you're lying, but that's funny. Thank you. And then I checked the chat and I saw it and I immediately said yes without asking the band, because I just assumed either they'll say yes or I'll replace them. But just because it's a good opportunity. And yeah, so and then Sasha told me that he wanted to kind of connect us with somebody at Metropolis just to pitch ourselves. Um, but it was in their hands what they decided to do. He just said, like reach out to them. I told them you'll be reaching out. Um, so I had no idea what a pitch deck was. I had no idea what a press kit was or any of this. All I know is how to yell into a microphone. So, and like draw some album art. That's about it. So I had to do my research. I contacted my friend Lyric, who is way smarter than me. And I had her help me kind of create a
EPK.
press kit, yeah, EPK.
Mhm.
And I submitted it and I was not really expecting anything back because all the bands on the label are bands that I grew up with listening to because of my mom, and they're nothing like the music I make. And it was also just crazy to think that, you know, the label that has Bauhaus, Skinny Puppy, KMFDM, or MSI would want anything to do with us. I'm like, I kind of just make goofy clown music a lot of the time, I feel. It's just whatever sounds fun at the time. But yeah, they said they were interested, and then I had to learn how to read a record contract because I'm too broke for a lawyer. That was fun. So it's kind of remained very DIY throughout all of it, which I think is also cool because I feel like it's helped me understand the music industry a lot more as a result of it.
Well, I think really good hands with Metropolis. I mean,
Mhm.
they've always been very like, hey, we'll work with you. I mean, I've had a lot of people on my podcast who've been loyal, you know, uh, part of the label and go, they've been nothing but great to us. So I think that being sort of your first signing a contract into a label that goes, look, we're here to work with you. Uh, we work for you. Like, you're the creative control. Everybody I've talked to is like, look, just make your album and we'll just put it out and we'll do what we can to make sure to push it and everything. So I think because a lot of people, when they kind of go into that first step of working with a label, you're kind of, there's a bit of a gamble because you're going, are they gonna are they gonna screw me over? Are they
Yeah.
gonna make me do this or have creative control over the music or the album cover or whatever? And Metropolis has been nothing but great to the bands and the employees and everything. So I think that's a big win for you guys. I think that's great.
Yeah. And they also showed me extreme compassion, because while all of this was happening, I lost my mom in the midst of all of this. So we signed, and then a couple months later, I think we signed in December of 2023, and then my mom passed away in February, and then we had to go on our first ever tour about 3 weeks later. So it was a lot, and with the tour planning too, I had to arrange everything myself, and so I was kind of in tandem planning a funeral and a tour and, release stuff and recording and also designing all the merch. Just way too much workload, but it's good to stay busy, I think. And they were extremely compassionate. Gail and Nina have been nothing but nice. Same with Jim. They're all really nice, cool people, and we've gotten the pleasure of hanging out with them a little bit, which is nice. Sometimes Nina comes down here, or occasionally I'll make the trek up to Seattle, because Nina lives up there and I'm from there, so it's cool to kind of have somebody on the label who, understands the world I grew up in.
Yeah. Just kind of for the whole band. I don't want to feel like I'm leaving anybody out. What do you
Yeah,
think
there's something ever.
What do you think? No, you're fine. What do you think you've learned from, Cam FDM tours, your first tour? What do you think you've learned from being on tour for the first time with Cam FDM? What do you think you've learned personally to yourself being on tour?
I think one of the biggest things, at least for me, was just kind of this realization that, you know, you can really leave this imposter syndrome sort of idea at the door, because once you get up on that stage, it all kind of goes out the window, and you're like, well, it's the performance or nothing, and these people in the audience are just going to judge us based off entirely of that. And be as big and as loud as you possibly can, because otherwise that's the only time you have to express that. And there's this the late guitarist of Mastodon has this thing that he used to say, or Brent Hines used to say this thing. He's like, when you're up on that stage, you're in the band, and when you're off the stage, you're just some guy from that band, and it's like that totally changes your reality of just like, oh, you have this 30-minute set, this hour-long set to blow people's brains out, and if you don't do that, then
It's an
interesting turn of
way to
phrase,
say
yeah,
that,
for
yeah.
sure. But if you can't achieve that, then you kind of have to have a different conversation with yourself of like, oh, is performance my thing? Is that what I want to do? Like,
Yeah.
but to feel comfortable up there, to be able to express that is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of end up finding out one way or the other. Because I joined the band after this whole tour happened, like pretty shortly after. But I mean, I've had experiences with other tours I've done with like other bands, because I play with like a few different people. I actually recently just got off like my first big like full US run with another artist I play with.
How
So
long was that? 6 weeks? 5 weeks?
I think including everything, including like stopping at home and like finishing all the shows, it was like about 6 weeks or so. Um, but I think that was really because I've done like little weekenders before that with other people, but like that was definitely the largest scale of touring that I had done up until this point. So for me, it was like kind of the same thing, like realizing that there's a, it's where when you're on stage, that like several hour period from when you load in to when you load out is such like a, I don't know if ego boost is the right term, but like you feel like you're on top of the world. Because also, I mean, when you see people who are there to see you, or just think even an iota of what you're doing is important to them for whatever reason, like I think that's like fucking awesome. So like I think, it gives you it's good. It keeps you in good spirits and like allows you to kind of dig into yourself and be something beyond what, or I guess you turned up to like 11, as they say, for like a good few hours, and then, you kind of come back down, but like it's, just getting comfortable with that and realizing that we're all just people. Even the people who like even the bands we were on tour with are like full of really cool people and just like really talented people who, you might respect for one reason or another. And at the end of the day, like you can just ask them those questions like, how did you come up with this? And it's not like, oh, well, I'm gonna gatekeep this. Actually, you don't get to know that. Like we're all just people, and it's just like so interesting towing that line between this is a person and like we're all just people, but then there's also like so much cool stuff that we can do when we get into that like artistic brain. So I think just like similar thing to what John said, just kind of like understanding that we're all just people, but we're also all capable of so much. And you really have to be able to like be a good person in both respects, in terms of like how you handle your artistry and like how you just act as a person and not letting the ego get the better of you. So just like all that kind of good stuff. And, again, this is not from like specifically the KMFDM touring thing, but like similar feelings to that.
What other artists or what other bands are you part of? Are you,
There's an artist, kind of like shoegaze alt rock artist I play for called Forest.
Mm-hmm.
I play bass in her band. We just got off like a full US run opening for a band called Clarion. That's kind of up and coming.
Yeah, those are guys we've known in the scene forever, and they just kind of blew up overnight. It's really cool.
Yeah, they actually just did a part of that tour was Clarion was opening for Panchico as well. So they got some cool shows. So it was just a great, fun group of people on that tour doing some really cool things. They got like covered by Alt Press and like Flood magazine and stuff. I mean, there's a couple like local bands that I'm in as well. That I play with. I'm in like a post emo band called Eroica. And then just like, if people ask me to like play with them and I have the availability, I do that as well. Just sort of like, hopping around to different things. But like Sour Tongue is one of the couple projects that I'm more actively involved in and consider myself like a member.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. So, and how do you usually find that sort of balance where, because, I grew up being a drummer and everybody needed a drummer in their band. And, so you got to try and find that like, okay, I got to do it with this band. I got this one, how do you kind of try and find that balance between, bands and stuff like, or is, Sour Tongue just right now your sort of priority and everybody else is kind of secondary?
It really varies. Like, I don't know if there is an answer to that question because I've been trying to figure out the answer for like several years. But I don't know. I managed to do it, but I think over time you kind of just figure out why you value being, because sometimes it's like, oh, this is paying the bills, so obviously this is important. But then there's other instances where it's like, because like with this band in particular, this is one of the few projects I've been a part of where like we're kind of all actively writing as a unit. Which I think is like it's nice when somebody takes care of like all the like groundwork and I just have to be there and show up. And then there's something to that, but I also really like being able to just make something that's like unique with like just people who are friends, not even just like, oh, we're in a band, we only see each other in band practice. Like we're friends, and it's just kind of this gray area between like we're just creating something that feels like us, which I think is very important. And like to me, that's very fulfilling. So like I think it's just a matter of kind of figuring out what your priorities are based on artistic value and like what's making you happy, but then also what is paying the bills, and can you make those the same thing? How can you merge those two things together?
Find that.
I will say, I think that what makes our project work too is that I try not to put unrealistic expectations on my friends, and I try to be understanding because I know that Mars has been in some situations where people have put a little more pressure on him to prioritize other projects, and I think it's made it harder for him, not to speak for you, but just as your friend,
Yeah.
I don't ever want Mars to feel like he has to choose us over anything else. I want it to be that he wants to be in the band because I know Mars is kind of just he's in a million bands all the time. He does a lot of stuff, and so I want him to feel like he can just have fun in our project because that's what
Yeah.
I want to
That's
do.
that's the way I see it. It's like at the
Yeah.
end of the day, I'd rather have fun because especially nowadays, I think just whenever you're having
Yeah.
fun playing music with a group of people, like at a very bare bones level, that's the foundation for everything else or what it can become. Like it doesn't always mean like, oh, my fun band doesn't have to be my important band. Like, no, that can be your important
Yeah.
band. And there's never been a better era for you to take that thing of you in a room and just like balloon it into whatever the hell you
Yeah.
want to make it into. So I think there's something to be said for like there's nothing wrong with like just starting with like what is fulfilling you on an artistic and like friendship level,
Yeah.
and like everything else is just external stuff.
I think first and foremost, I just want to protect my friendships with the people I work with because I think a band should be fun. I never want to reach a level where we are all at each other's throats because we kind of had that in our old formation. When we went on our tour, I was trying really hard to be a people pleaser because I mean, if you've followed us for a while, as some people have, they've noticed that we've replaced everybody but me and John because we had some issues when we were on tour. And I can't really talk about it at great length because I have been harassed to an extent for this in the past. But I will say that working with men who have fragile egos can be the most detrimental thing to the creative process, regardless of how good they are at guitar. And I want to work with people who I feel comfortable voicing my thoughts to. And with Mars and our other bandmates, Damati and Van, who couldn't make it today, I never feel awkward or anxious or uncomfortable voicing any opinions because I know that they're receptive and they don't view me as lesser because I'm a woman, and they also didn't get into a band with me per se because they thought I was hot, which happens sometimes. So, yeah, that's all I can say about that.
No, it's fun. And I think when you're kind of working with musicians, I think there needs to be a balance of because some people will be like, oh, it's like a especially when you're on tour, like, oh, it's a family, and there needs to be a lot of flexibility, and not just that, but with you being the front and center, I think there's a lot of I'm trying to find the right word, where there's kind of a lot of weight on you kind of being like, hey, if you kind of go and see a band, it's like this is what you're seeing, this is what you're getting, and you kind of got to be the book cover or whatever, you know what I mean? Like you got to be to not only grab people's attention but also to entertain, and that could be a lot of pressure on you, as the sort of the and especially being a female, it's got to be a lot of work being, I don't like throwing the word around that's a female fronted band, but you are a female fronted band, and there's still a lot of that pressure on you, and not just that, but you're in the middle of family issues, signing a contract, being on tour, having to make all the decisions, and going, hey, let's get this merch out, and let's get this album out, and let's, and I think, with a lot of the musicians who kind of have this ego of like, well, they're, there's really no place in the music scene for that, especially when you're, when you're in the trenches. You're going on tour, you're finding your place in the scene and in the music and with all these bands and shit like that. It's like there's no place for ego right now. Like,
exactly,
you need to be egoless, you need to have camaraderie, you need to have a friendship. It's like, it's the band of brothers, a band of brothers and sisters, kind of in these trenches, going, look, we're just here to make it through, and let's do what we can to not only have fun, make money, but also get through this tour and come out of it like victorious. So
Yeah, I think a lot of the time the issues that I face are just that there is definitely I mean, like you said, there's that pressure just kind of being a woman in a band because you never really know what people's intentions are. Um, for instance, this is kind of a funny anecdote, but it also kind of goes to show just some of the danger that can be, that can come with it is we were really fortunate enough to play a show with Strung Out right before we left for tour with KMFDM. We played in San Diego with them. And after the show, I had multiple elderly men try to kiss me on the mouth, to the point where John and our other friends had to circle around me as a sort of human shield because this guy was like, "Hey, great set, sweetheart."
jeez.
Thanks, man. Keep
That's
that tongue away
insane.
from me.
I remember being in front of you and people being like, "Oh, can I talk to her?" I'm like, "Yeah, you can talk to her. That's okay. That's fine.
It's like you would
a
ask
human
you would
woman."
ask to talk to her, but you wouldn't ask to fucking it's like, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
no, it really is truly insane. Like,
I've had a lot of people try to kiss me at shows. It's
yeah,
very peculiar. Uh,
just the entitlement people feel for like
yeah,
not just
it's
performers, but specifically like female performers. It's
yeah,
always
because I
like,
think that they think, I mean, my understanding, or I guess maybe less understanding, but just the way I project my views into the situation is that because it's a very male-dominated genre that we're in, uh, they feel like they get to dictate how I move within the scene. I've had a lot of men throughout my life try to control me, just in my words and my actions and how I present myself in music because I I would say I'm a pretty outspoken person, and
yes, you are.
I think people take issue with that because I don't just keep it within the music, and it's gotten my ass in trouble quite a bit. I've had people fully threaten my life recently, but I think that being in punk, you kind of have to just say exactly what you feel and stand on your opinions no matter what, you
Yeah.
know?
And I think also that just like across the board, like more and more now, that's sort of the ethos of like making cool new music now is because it's like you take all the gender stereotypes and then you also add in the whole like I feel like there's so many old, especially like really older people who just can't fully accept that there are cool new bands. Not just, I mean, there's always been cool music, like it's never stopped being made, but it's like now that we live in an era of like there's so many like you can go online and easily find like a KEXP or like NPR, like just some live session of some really cool band that you've never heard of that plenty of people are paying to go see on a tour somewhere. And there's still people being like, well, what happened to rock music? I'm like, have you ever considered that maybe it just is evolving like it always has? And like, there's always just old heads out there trying to be like, oh, when I was your age, I was doing that. I'm like, it literally does not matter.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the best thing you can do is do exactly your own thing and like have some originality to how you're
Yeah.
tackling things for better or worse. I'm like, that's how the genres that they grew up loving like were invented. That's how punk was invented. That's how like any genre that's like pushed cultural boundaries has come about. So like that's exactly what's happening now. And it's all about continuing to do that because you
Yeah.
don't get anything new without that.
Yeah.
So I think that just like makes it even more essential to do that, like in what you're saying or like the musical tool set that you're using or just whatever, like in literally every like
Yeah.
facet of it.
And to elaborate on that just a little bit is I will say I feel like we've actually gotten pretty lucky with our older fans because some of them genuinely see that the inspirations that we pull from are in, um, they're well intentioned, and it's because it does mean a lot to me. Every time, we get some sort of write-up where they say, "Oh, I see Hole in this," or Babes in Toyland, or recently we got Daisy Chainsaw. I'm like,
Oh,
yes, that's
that
the biggest compliment ever
that's
because
exactly what I heard when I heard your music. I went Daisy
yeah,
Chainsaw. It's exactly what I thought.
yeah, like Babes in Toyland and Hole and Daisy Chainsaw are truly just some of the greatest bands in my opinion. Also Butthole Surfers, huge inspiration. I think that's kind of where I take a lot of inspo because I love the goofiness of it, but it's still, you'll hear lyrics like I saw an x-ray of a girl passing gas with some really incredible instrumentals, and it's just, I really like the juxtaposition of humor with really good music. I think that all music should be fun, even if you're writing about things that are depressing, like, uh, we wrote a song before we went on tour called we for a long time we were calling it Godzilla Sex Tape just because the riff kind of had a Godzilla-esque element to it, but it was about watching my mom die, and it was like not a happy song, but I think, just finding ways to have fun with it will keep you from going insane because it is, I think, incredibly hard right now for a lot of musicians to feel heard because the algorithms push things that are very, I think, music that doesn't challenge people. Courtney Love said something recently that really, made me, I think it rung really true with me was that she thinks Taylor Swift makes, she's a safe space for girls, but her music is not important. And I think that's how you can look at a lot of music right now. There are a lot of more mainstream bands that get a lot of exposure who don't really say anything of importance. And it's because they don't challenge anything that people feel comfortable listening to their music because it's milquetoast, there's there's nothing to be offended by, therefore everybody can appreciate it.
No.
And I think that if you want to make any art that matters, it has to upset somebody in some capacity.
Challenge an idea.
I don't think it should be made with the intent of being offensive, but I think that it should just mean something to
It just
you.
has to be honest at the end of the day. Like whatever the truth is like for you, even if I don't like it at the end of the day, like that's to me, that's the more important thing. If people are trying to say what they want to say and they're not changing it because someone else thinks they should do this or that, like that's what it's about. And if you always do that, eventually you'll just make it something that's like better and better. Sorry, I've been
Well, that's
very
kind of
distracted
like,
by Rocket
yeah,
who's joining us now.
that's kind of like the pinnacle of creating art, right? Is like, why why say something with no meaning, or why present this idea that has no right existing because everybody has had this thought, or it's just like, hey, here's an opinion, here's an idea that I've had in my head, and I want to see how everyone else thinks about this. I want to see how the world at large reacts to this, and what what is kind of the general temperature out there on this thought. And it's like, if it's already, if it is a safe thought, then we already know.
Yeah.
And what's the point of kind of harping on that? It's just, it feels pretty reductive in the grand scheme of things to be like, oh, we all know it's fine.
Yeah.
I get that. And one thing that when you guys are talking about, music, popular music now, and kind of trying to find, where you kind of find your place. I was, unfortunately, this came upon my algorithm, was Matt Walsh, and he was talking about rock music. Yeah. So he stepped into my world where, mostly his politics is politics, but he stepped into music, and he was talking about how rock music is dead. And yeah, I know.
Maybe it's because sleeping with children isn't as acceptable anymore,
Right.
and he loves kids.
Yeah. And so he was talking about, the Rolling Stone posted like the most popular bands, and it's all older bands now. And I'm like, well, mostly because record labels, the major labels, aren't willing to take risks anymore. They're
Yeah.
not willing to sign bands that have an edge to them because they want to be safe. But also, I think underground bands now are going, I don't want to deal with that shit. I want to make sure, first of all, I don't want to deal with a label that's going to take, you know, 70% of, my earnings, or is going to have any creative control over my music, blah, blah, blah. Like, they're trying to avoid that. And they're finding their place in the underground where not only they say and play whatever they want, but they'll have more creative control using Subvert or Bandcamp or whatever. And I think that rock music isn't dead. I think it's definitely found its place in the underground, and people aren't willing to go to the underground to find music anymore. They go, whatever's on the radio, I guess that's it. And I always have that issue with people where I'm going, you're not looking. You're not
Yeah.
trying to find them.
I almost feel like this is a little bit of almost like I don't know if I'd call it a class issue really, but like when you think about the economy we're living into and like the people are like being squeezed tighter and tighter, like within their means, it's like people they're it makes perfect sense why somebody who lives, I don't mean, because we're based in Los Angeles, but like you take someone who lives in like a small town in, I don't know, somewhere in like
Missouri.
yeah, sure. Like you take someone who lives out there and like there are people whose entire life is they have a job that may or may not be what their ultimate passion is, just what they do day to day, like, 9 to 5. And then they like, at the end of the day, if they had the time, I'm sure maybe they would go explore something if they felt the need to do that or like the desire to do that. But like a lot of them end up just sort of like viewing music as like, this is how I unwind. I don't care too deeply about it, but a lot of them just don't have the time or the energy to like delve into something that's beyond a certain level because it's easy to comprehend and it's a comfort thing, which I think is a perfectly valid thing for music to be, but it can always be so much more. So when you show people music that is like digging into those artistic depths more, it's just hard to like you can't to explain that right off the cuff to someone who doesn't understand, like have that depth perception of music is just like such an uphill battle. But then you have people who are just used to like there being a music scene and like who are always looking for stuff. And like even kids now, because I think kids now growing up learning that like, yeah, there's pop music and then there's underground music, and they're finding out how fun alternative underground stuff can be and how it's the roots for literally everything. So like, my hope is that those younger kids grow up with the understanding that that's where music kind of lives, and like you can always go to shows, you can always discover new things, you can always make new things. But I think the hard thing is reaching those audiences that just view music as and again, perfectly valid as a comfort thing, an easy thing that's just like a kind of an accessory to your life. But like for some people, like music is like what gives it meaning, and they're not satisfied with that like surface levelness to it.
And I think a lot of people also just get wrapped up in the numbers games. They care more about appealing to a large amount of people instead of just making something that they truly like. I see a lot of bands who make these posts that are like, come talk to us at our shows before we're too big to talk to you peasants. And it's like, that's just not the right mentality to have about anything. I think that people will recognize if you enjoy doing what you do and you're not doing it for clout.
It's like just don't beg for attention. Like just people should want to come to you because they respect what you're doing, not because you have to beg them. If you have to beg someone to come listen to your stuff, like in like realistic, unless you're like just joking about it, like I feel like you've kind of already lost people.
Well, it's like the art will inform the attention that you should give it. Like, oh, I'm intrigued by this. I'm fascinated by this.
Sorry,
there you go. Your attention's already there. If you really have to, nickel and dime somebody about their attention, you're like, oh, hey, you should really check this out,
Yeah.
or like really, really listen to us. I just, to a certain degree, I do feel like it's just, hey, man, let it speak for itself.
I think there's also just oversaturation coming from a lot of people who aren't in it for genuine reasons. There's a lot of I've noticed a trend of I don't really keep up with influencers, but I'll see them around and then suddenly one day I'll see that, this influencer who never expressed any interest in music before is now a musician and they're making what I can only refer to as like TikTok slop music, song slop, alternative slop, it's music that is meant to generate streams because people are curious as to what this person sounds like in a different medium from, let's say, making makeup tutorials and stuff. Or, you know, yeah, I don't know that I'm just thinking of like one influencer that I saw, but there's this one song about like you're a dog on a leash, you're a leash dog, pull your dog leash. I don't know, something. It's one of the worst songs I've ever heard. And that person got a lot of streams and they, seem to get some tour dates out of it too. And it's because I think people just want to know what it sounds like. And they're not even listening to it a lot of the time because they like the music, but more so because they're just curious, And it is a smart way to generate revenue, but it also just oversaturates the market and also diminishes the value of people who have been within those spaces working on their art for a long time. And I don't want to sound bitter to say, nobody can just, or people can't just randomly get into music one day. I think they should, but I think if it's because your social media strategy, marketing manager, or whatever is telling you that this is the path you need to take because you're not making enough money off of TikTok anymore, it's not going to be, you're just jumping from one thing to another, to another, to another. And I think that's a really common thing that I see in the music scene nowadays. It's just people who make music because they want to be famous, not because they like making music.
Sure. Yeah, and I see that even with the podcast world where apparently anybody and everybody is like, oh, let's do a podcast, but they're doing it, with sponsors because they want to make money. They're doing this as another revenue stream, and for I'm not going for people like me where this is my hobby. This is my passion. I love doing this, much like being a musician. I love the creativity. I love being able to perform. But with the podcast, I love talking to bands. I love getting to know people. I love this. And there's no like, hey, I'm not doing this for sponsorships. I'm not doing this for clout. I'm not doing this for nothing. It's like, you need to find what your real passion is and what you love to do instead of, following these trends and how can I make money and how can I get more likes and subscribers and views and shit like that. It really just it takes over social media and it's such a weird place to be part of. I mean, what's it like for you guys just kind of being a band in the middle of this sort of social media era? I mean, you guys seem very much like take it or leave it. You're not doing a whole song and dance for people to come to your shows or check out your albums. You're going, this is what you're going to get, and I hope you love it. Like, tell me about your sort of journey going through social media as being a band on social media.
I'm terrible at it. The last time I promoted one of our songs, I posted a video on TikTok, I think, of me painting a Dungeons and Dragons miniature figurine over our music. And I had my big magnifying hobby glasses on because I don't want to do a dance. I'm not good at it, kudos to those who do. But I just posted, I'm like, here's me doing something and here's my song. Listen to it if you want to.
That's about all it takes.
Yeah.
I think the whole grand idea about being a musician in this era of social media is that you are asked to essentially be put in this artificial environment of like, hey, what this really is advertising. All right, heard chef, I got that. I'd like to do that. That's awesome. But I don't, necessarily want to sit there, with my band and brainstorm skit ideas or little slice of life things, to make us seem interesting, or because again, at the end of the day, I really just like performing and writing music, and the catch of it all is being put in this artificial environment of having to, come up with these things that read well on social media, and it's just it's a bit of a it is a bit of a collar to latch on to artists. I just feel like it's like, oh hey, this is your thing now. This is now your responsibility to do this, and it's like I just couldn't be bothered, couldn't be mithered with it.
Yeah.
I just it's not my thing.
Well, also, I think the point is to you have to like people come to shows and like are drawn to bands because they're doing something that they can't necessarily, or at least don't think they can do themselves. Like it appears as magic. So if you like take yourself as like too seriously on social media, you're taking the for lack of a better term, like the aura away, the magic away, and it should be something that like piques your interest for like a reason. If you're just like, hey, we make some music if you want to listen to it, I'm like, that's okay, but like why? Like respectfully, like, why should I care?
Yeah.
In like the nicest way. It's like, because I was like, I care about it, but it's like, why should I come to see you? Because you do it to get outside of your own box. And if it's not providing something that like makes you drawn to it, like you can do that if you're forcing that. If you're just like following the rule book, you're not really doing that. You're just like, it's like you're auditioning for people. But like if you take it too seriously, it just like I don't know what I'm trying to say. Just like the music shouldn't be, there's like an element of silliness and just like non-seriousness that's already a part of what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I feel like that should translate to like if you're doing any social media promotion at all, like it shouldn't be so serious that you're like breaking the bank to put together like a sketch or like a I don't know, you should do it because you want to do it. Like, hey, that would be silly. What if we did this? And you should do it just to like the same reason you might make like a short film for fun with your friends. Like, it's the same concept, and you'll get more satisfaction out of doing it. And like, for better or worse, because you'll like it, and like you'll at least be proud of it, regardless of any numbers associated with like the algorithm that like happens with it. Like,
I just feel
point of honesty, then.
Yes,
I feel awkward filming myself talking. I can scream into a microphone in front of 1,000 people, but if I have to talk in a TikTok, I feel like I'd rather put my face in boiling water at times. I mean, I respect people who can do it. I can't, I'm so bad at it. I'm so bad at it.
Whole nother ball game.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right.
Let's jump into like the sort of creative process when it comes to working on an album. Tell me about kind of like how the creative process works when it, we can start with, the sort of songwriting process with writing lyrics, and then how you guys kind of go, okay, here's the song, here's a melody idea, shit like that. Like, kind of tell me about the sort of how that process goes with you guys.
I think it is really sort of I don't want to necessarily use the phrase comedy of errors. Bless you. I don't necessarily want to use the phrase comedy of errors, but it really is
Bless you.
A situation of being in a rehearsal space and hearing somebody mess around with a little idea, and you're like, I like that. Is that yours? And if the person answers yes, then it's all right. Let's mess around with that a bit. Let's play with structure. Ooh, that sounds like a chorus thing. Ooh, let's try to see if we can get a verse going on here. And then, you can tell it's something really interesting and fun if you're just messing around with something. And Satori's, over in the corner, and she starts singing, trying out a little melody to it, and you're like, okay, I've struck a little something here.
I think no matter what we play, we always seem to like, even for stuff we haven't even used yet, if one of us starts playing, we kind of all sooner or later within like 5 minutes sort of end up hopping in at some point with, some semblance of a part, or at least a first like draft of a part. And some of those ideas are just still sitting there. Like they're, may or may not become songs, but at least since I've been in the band, everything's been pretty much as like a unit without too much intention, like off the bat. Like whenever like, hey guys, let's try to write a song, we kind of just start, we know it feels good in the room to start with.
Yeah.
And then we kind of just like, buff it out a little bit and like just, cut out the fat where we can. And then that sort of just becomes a song and Satori puts lyrics on it. Like,
yeah, there's never ever in the entire time we've ever had this band been a time where one of us has come to practice and been like, I wrote a song, let's all play it. It's always just a glorified jam session that we wound up taking more time on to flesh out, but every song we can kind of tell, within the first couple minutes if it's something we want to actually continue doing or just scrap entirely. Um, we have 3 new songs right now that we're putting towards a new album, and one of them we recently recorded as a single. And that one was kind of just us goofing around, and it turned out to be like my new favorite song we've ever written. Yeah.
Like every person I've shown that like little like demo to, like when I showed it to Kate, she was like people. I was like, guys, we actually wrote the song of the summer.
And it's
like, wait, what?
and it's a really goofy riff, honestly. It's a very it doesn't make sense, but it's fun. So we've just been calling it Company Karaoke Party. Um because it's nonsensical, and we also wanted to give it a really boring title
I also thought that
because we thought it would be funny that like our most fun song has the most boring name.
I always thought it was kind of a play on like, this is such a common trope in America, but you hit record sales for the quarter and the boss says, "All right, guys, we're gonna have a party to reward you for all your hard work. We made $1 billion profit this quarter, and here's pizza and
Everybody get on the floor and fight for the crust."
Yeah, and it's like, oh, hey, what about raises? And it's like, no, what? I can't hear you over the sound of karaoke and pizza. And it's like just this grand cosmic joke that's just like, yeah, you worked hard. Now have something that's absolutely not worth your time or energy. But yeah, that particular track is like super dancey, and I remember it just kind of coming off this like really fun syncopated bass riff, and then it just kind of became this like dancey, almost disco-esque. Like
it pretty much just wrote itself.
Yeah.
It's and in the same way that I think a lot of the other songs do, it's sort of, you could say, like kind of blurs genre lines, but without really even trying to. Like, I think we're the kind of people who just, we know when a part feels right, like physically, and we know what feels fun for us to play, so that becomes a basis for like whatever direction it may or may not go in. Like, it's never like, oh, let's try to write this kind of song. It's just sort of like grooves are grooves. Yeah. Some of them are more dancey, some maybe are slower and sludgier. There's a whole like world of what we could write.
I have a hard time when people ask us what genre we're doing. I'm like, I don't know. Can you tell me?
I really do think it like comes down to, it's more like if the brain is this sort of like amalgamous hive mind, or if the band is this amalgamous hive mind, we're just like synthesizing these songs that are our interpretation of other things that just end up sounding like Sour Tongue, where we're like, oh yeah, you like disco, that's kind of cool, like, well, this is what disco sounds like to us. They're like, oh, you like country, or
we got signed off of our disco song.
Right.
The country song we wrote was just because I told John one day, I'm like, I kind of want to write a song where all the lyrics are George Bush quotes.
Yeah, I wrote that down. I was going to ask about watching it drive. Is that kind of how it started, where it was just like, oh, this is funny, and you guys have the clip at the beginning, and it's
I have been kind of soft pitching the idea of a country song for a while, and our old guitar player was, no pun intended, a real sourpuss. So it's kind of hard to convince him of anything a lot of the time, but one day we did get him to sit down and kind of just fuck around with the idea of a country song, and we thought it would be fun to kind of transition from two-step to hardcore kind of beat down. And I just started reading off George Bush quotes that I had saved in my notes app of things that I thought were just hilarious. One quote in there actually was one that I got from an employee of the federal government because my ex-boyfriend worked for the FDIC, and he told me that his boss told him while he was in college, C's get degrees. And so I threw that in there. right next to a boob joke, and I thought that was fun. It turned out to be a very easy song to write because I was just kind of thinking of whitest kids you know type satire.
Yeah.
I think like the way that a lot of this songwriting comes about and sort of the themology of it all is having this and building this inside joke just to kind of play around with people's expectations and say like, oh, well, you think you got it handled, but you don't.
Mhm.
And here we'll tell you why. And it's not in spite of people. It's more like, hey, you can join in on this, and this joke can be funny to you too, if you choose. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it is a bit of thumbing the nose at people and just saying like, you know what, you're not ready.
I also like to write a lot of songs from the perspective of people I don't rock with, to kind of shed light on how dumb their actions are. And I think it's a fun way to write music. Company Karaoke Party is largely that, it's about writing, or I wrote the song from the perspective of people who, do a lot of shady shit and have no idea how to, own up to their own actions, and instead they project. And I think, singing about that kind of helps me deal with the negative feelings I have towards those sorts of situations because otherwise I'd go crazy because I can't convince people to have what's the word I'm looking for? Common sense.
Yeah.
You can't. I've learned no matter how hard you try to hammer it into somebody, you just can't teach decency.
I agree, 100%. And what's funny is that you brought up inside jokes and stuff, and I think that's one thing I wrote in my notes. I'm going, there's a sort of balance of personal vulnerability lyric writing versus there's this sort of like, we're just doing this for fun. There's no sort of agenda type thing, and there's a lot of these inside jokes with a lot of these songs that I'm going, I know it's there, but I'm not quite in on the joke, but I know there's something there. And I think that's what's great about the sort of writing process with, writing the lyrics. Has it always kind of been like that? Or is this kind of like how it just comfortably felt as the process went? Does that make sense? Where it's like it
Yeah.
started here, but then it was here, or has it always kind of been consistent with your you writing lyrics?
Yeah, I think just from the get-go, we started this band as just kind of something to do during the pandemic. We just wanted to have fun with some ideas that we don't really get to use. We just went into it saying, hey, let's just make the songs that we would never put in our regular bands because it doesn't really fit anything in particular. It's just fun, goofy stuff. And I totally had a thought that I feel like I'm losing right now. Um,
Started in COVID.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, it's kind of just one of those things where I think a lot of it is I've learned that other people have different interpretations of what I've written because I remember on tour, I mean, a little bit before we left for tour, I was checking our Spotify listener stats and I saw that we had mostly male listeners, and I thought to myself, I'm like, surely they don't understand my lyrics because otherwise they would not be listening to me. I can come across as a misandrist at times, I believe. And
Okay.
uh but then when we were playing the show in San Francisco, I looked out in the crowd and there were like three older gay men singing along to Soap when I was saying I get so tired of talking to men. They say the same thing over and over again. I'm like, hey, they get it.
All makes
But
sense.
I've also learned that, maybe I'm not as covert about being on the spectrum as I thought I was, because I'll sometimes, for fun, look at the playlists that were added to on Spotify, and I've seen quite a few, an alarming number, that are like autism coded. I'm like, okay, weird. That's not really my intention with the song, I guess, but like A Mile in Clown Shoes was definitely that one. And then looking back on it, I'm like, yeah, that's fair. I would think I was 21 when we wrote that. So yeah, they got me.
Huh.
I
And
don't think, like, as it relates to lyrics and you, I think you've always just kind of been like you've always just taken an approach and an attitude with the world that there is a lot to be said about how people operate. And I think one of your most effective tools is just like satire and being able to break people down just with either their own logic or just, applying some simple, thought puzzle to it all. And you're just like, well, here's how it is. Isn't that dumb? Isn't that silly? You know?
My my biggest fear in the world is being a hypocrite.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. And that's kind of how I've always felt where, it's like I want honesty. I want people to, see that I'm an honest person and that there's not this sort of, I like to put myself out there as much as I can without putting up this sort of mask and going, I'm this person behind a shield or anything like that. Like I've always been try to be as honest as I can. Not just that, but be me. Like I don't want to put on a whole show and song and dance, and even musically it was like, this is me, this is my music, this isn't a character, this isn't this. This is what you're gonna get, and you're gonna get me. And that's pretty much what I try and feel like I put out there. Do you think there's a common misconception when it comes to people listening to your songs or anything like that that you feel like they don't quite understand?
I mean, to be goofy, honestly, I've seen a few comments about us online, especially this started when we got signed and went on tour with KMFDM was I haven't really seen any hate comments, people being like, "Oh, I hate them, they suck." But the comment that I've seen the most was just like, "This isn't industrial." I'm like, "Great observation, bud.
It's like I don't think anyone claimed
You
it
did
was.
it."
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing, like at least that I really fuck with is like being able to just like sometimes I forget that people even have these like expectations that if you're on like a certain label or a certain thing, people just expect you to be of like a similar genre or something like that. And I'm just like, I've never taken genre boundaries like seriously in any sort of way where I'm just like good music. I mean, I also listen to a lot of different stuff and I don't really have a whole lot of like boundaries. And I sometimes forget that people have those kinds of like preconceived notions. And so it really surprised me sometimes where I'm like, okay, it's not industrial. So what? Like, I don't think anyone claimed it was. And also, whether it is or it isn't, I'm like, do you like it? I don't really care. Like,
Yeah, like I think my top artists on streaming last year were Butthole Surfers and this country musician named Isaac Opatz.
Yeah.
Very different, but it's just, there's I think that the worst thing you can do as a musician is try to just be one thing and only listen to one thing, because every musician that I've looked up to in my life has always said that, like all the great punks, they all have one thing in common, and they say that the album that got them into being a musician was the White Album by Beatles, and it's very different from, say, uh like anything the Melvins have ever done. But a lot of these big bands, just listen to things that are totally different. And I think that's what makes a well-rounded good musician is being able to listen to a bunch of different stuff and to not, just box yourself in. Because if you're a good songwriter, you'll be able to take elements of things that have nothing to do with the, kind of base genre that you're working with, and you'll make it into something cool and fun.
yeah, like people like your brain, it's almost like when you're listening to an artist, you're getting a piece of their brain, and like real human brains, like they always evolve. Like think about like what you used to listen to, or like the last time you discovered a new artist and how that maybe snowballed into you discovering some artist that they love that is now your favorite artist. Like people's tastes are evolving. The people who make music, again, like as we said, are people.
Yeah.
So it's like, it makes perfect sense that like you would have an evolution as someone who just likes music, and like you also just you perceive it in your own way. There's certain elements of other genres that you might not even know that you really like until much later on, and that could just and so if people are okay with doing that as listeners, I think it just stands to reason that if you're an artist, it's the same type of thing. You're going to evolve. You're going to learn new stuff. I think the difference is if you're doing it to try to appeal to a certain audience, or if like, hey, I'm interested in this. Let me see what I can do with this, new set of tools or whatever.
Yeah.
I was going to say about the misconception thing. I'm sure this happens to a lot of female fronted bands or uh, bands with female members, especially in like heavier genres, I feel oftentimes there's that generalized uh, underestimation of like how hard we can bite down, just being like, coming off stage and people being like, yeah, wow, I didn't, I saw that short girl up there and I didn't expect that to come out. Wow, that's insane. I'm like, yeah, dude, she'll kill you.
Yeah.
I don't know what's like, thank you, but
Or you're really good for a girl, which my favorite response to is, thanks, you're not that short for a man. Like, because it's not, inherently an insult, but it's always underhanded. It's like,
Yeah.
you wouldn't say that to a man, so why are you saying that to me?
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
And it's always guys who can't even do what I do, not to sound full of myself, but
Yeah, of course not.
some of these guys really suck.
It's just something they don't understand. I'm
Yeah.
not giving them a pass or anything, but like
Yeah.
it's just something that they couldn't understand,
Yeah.
whether it's coming from, generally I'd say it's non-musicians that are probably saying this, because I would say most
A lot
musicians
of the,
have at least
I've
read
gotten
the
it from a
film.
lot of musicians.
Of course.
I mean, there was a guy in the scene who booked us for a show
Mm-hmm.
and sent me a bunch of shirtless videos of him in bed
Yeah.
to tell us about the load-in details. And I said, cool, thanks. Gonna forward these to my band now. And he said, wait, no, can you just like, text it? I'm like, well, if you didn't, yeah, like if you didn't want the band to see it, why are you sending it to me?
Yeah, it is.
And he's also one of those guys who said, you're pretty good for a girl. So
It truly is mind-boggling, like how a lot of men modify their behavior when they realize that they're interfacing with a woman. They're like, oh, well, I know this is business, but how about I make this personal? It's like, hey, man, how about you don't? We don't need to do this. Like
It's
that's
ridiculous, and it's sick and it's sad. That's like we're in a very progressive age, and it's just like if you're so far behind this time of progression, you're such a Neanderthal. Like if you're like, it's just stop. You're just making the music scene look bad, and it's just like stop trying to hit on girls in their DMs. It's disgusting and disturbing.
Maybe you have a foundational problem that you need to work through. Don't don't project that onto this thing. Like, okay, like this is like she's a musician, John's a musician, I'm a musician. There really is no difference in what so like don't act like there's some special like, oh, you got a woman in the band. I'm like, yes, and
I probably have more testosterone than
yes,
guys, quite honestly.
That's me.
I think I'm a lot more confrontational than any of the men in my band, if I'm being real.
no, absolutely.
Van is probably about equal with me.
Yeah.
But I'm quick.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm quick to call it like I see it. And I think, a lot of this just goes back to a lot of men can't comprehend women engaging in more male-dominated hobbies historically without sexualizing them. And I think it dates back to, like something as simple as beer ads. There's women who are posing with a bottle of Bud Light and they're almost nude, and it's like women don't drink beer, and if they do, it's hot. Or, women in old rock music videos, they're scantily clad and yeah, they're props, So these men from a young age kind of just associate sexuality or a woman's involvement in a male-dominated scene as inherently sexual. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty succinct.
Yeah.
Unfortunately succinct.
Right, and it's just like and yeah, I'm not gonna. Yeah. Anyways, so are you the same person on and off the stage? Like, do you feel like you're 100% you? There's no, when you get up on stage, do you kind of feel like you turn into another person? Like, there's a little bit more energy, there's a little bit more razzle dazzle, or are you kind of just the same through and through?
I feel like I'm hard at, or I'm hard pressed to really I don't know, observe that. I think that
Yeah.
I definitely play it up, you know. I think I'm a pretty mellow person in my day-to-day life. I dress like Adam Sandler and I probably act pretty similarly in a lot of the sense. But on stage, you know, I try to kind of play it up a little bit, but
I think
if
we
you
all
catch me in a weird moment, I'll let the weirdness kind of peek out a little more. You know, recently we played a show and some guy saw that I was wearing a Magic the Gathering shirt and he asked me if I play Yu-Gi-Oh! And I started talking about how I would never touch that game because I heard that there's a trap card where guys will fondle their buttholes and then shake your hand, and if you don't shake their hand, they automatically win the game, and I'm not messing with that.
Mhm.
It's really easy to sidetrack me, so I think, you know, I think, you know, I'm not myself. I don't really have a persona that I purposefully put on, but I think I just yeah, weirdly enough, I think it's easier for me to perform musically than it is for me to talk into a microphone and speak about things that aren't weird because I'm
yeah.
so used to being in my little hamster enclosure where I talk about video games and I don't know.
Fantasy,
Yeah, dumb stuff, and
sci-fi.
then I'm on stage and I have to talk about music and performing and I'm just like, I don't know, I'm here.
I think it's oddly similar in a way to like professional wrestling too, in the sense that like it's it's supposed to like on a different scale, it's supposed to be like larger than life. So like because I feel like there's just a part I always think of it as like there's a part of each of us that kind of wants to like a part of our brain that we just don't normally don't put on display because it's chaotic and high energy, and we kind of just save that for the stage, and it's like an honest part of us, but like it's like when you think about like what would you do if all of a sudden it's like it's just you in like a room by yourself or with a couple of people, and then boom, there's anywhere from I don't know 10 to 100 or 1,000, however many people in one room. What would you do? It's like you can either kind of like cower back in fear and be like, oh, I'm not gonna do this, or you can just do your thing. And obviously, that's a very big amount of pressure, but like that's kind of what the way I think of it. Like you're taking yourself, you're turning it up to 11. You're taking those like boundaries that you put, just the social boundaries that just kind of keep you at bay, and you're like, this is the time to have fun, to go fucking crazy.
The safety parameters are removed.
Yes.
And I will say, I think the one thing that is very different from how I act on stage to how I am in my day-to-day life is that I think I enjoy playing up my femininity on stage, because I've experienced a lot in my life, you know, guys kind of trying to diminish my, it sounds weird, but my womanhood. You know, I've had guys say that, you know, I'm not a real girl in a lot of ways because of my interests, but I think that's really reductive because I hate the whole I'm not like other girls thing. I love other girls. I love hanging out with girls. Girls are the best. And I think that I should be allowed to enjoy my dumb hobbies as well as my, you know, more, I guess, traditionally feminine interests. And I remember we played this show when we went on tour with KMFDM, and I wore a dress, which I don't really wear too often, just because I have some insecurities. It's not because I, you know, reject it, but I like playing up the feminine angle when I perform because I think it's it's funny and it gives men a hard time to, you know, separate the fact that, you know, I'm a woman in this field and they can't just be like, oh, well, that's a tomboy. It's like, I'm
Fucks
just
with
a
their
guy.
expectations.
Yeah. So, but I remember I wore a dress and these tall boots, which I ate shit in all the time. I fell in those so much. I was so bruised coming back from tour, but I was wearing a dress and boots and like dangly earrings, you know, stuff that I don't really usually wear out in public unless it's a special occasion, not because, you know, any reason. I'm just lazy. Um, and then there was this guy who was working on our tour crew, his wife, who's always hated me for some reason. She went up to me and she said, "Oh my God, Satori, I never really saw you as a feminine person until today, but like that dress, it's kind of cute. Like, you know, but it's really weird to see you like that." And she was just kind of doing this mean girl routine with me. just trying to, kind of shut down, any sort of confidence I had. And it really reminded me of when I was a kid, because I was a weird, awkward goth kid, and I dressed, the way my mom dressed me. All my clothes were like black or like pleather and stuff. It was goofy, but it just really brought me back to being a kid and feeling insecure. I'm like, I wanted to try something different. It was the first time I've ever played a show wearing a dress and, tights, and did my hair all crazy, and I felt really confident going on stage. And then when I got off and she said that, I felt weird, like she was just trying to make me feel bad about myself because she was laughing as she said it. And then I saw her, snickering to another girl nearby who was also, in a relationship with one of the guys in that touring crew. And I learned later that it was a running joke to make fun of me trying to be more feminine. And I thought that was really peculiar because I've never been ashamed of being a girl. I'm very proud of it, and I love, all my girlfriends, and I could never imagine, doing that to another person. It's just peculiar. But yeah, it's long to get to the short of it. It's just I think I do try to, put more of a feminine angle into my stuff. I mean, a lot of our album covers have a lot of pink cutesy imagery because I think it's fun.
Would you say you almost wield it like a weapon in the sense that just kind of like, oh, hey, you think this is one thing, but
Yeah.
stab, it's another. Stab, oh, are you getting it?
Yeah.
Do you get it?
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of,
Yeah.
Poking the very little bit. It's like,
Yeah, I mean, the song that we put out, Soap, the choruses are me moaning, and then the verses are me saying like, you're a dumb hypocrite and your brain don't work, stuff like that. It's just I think it's fun to go back and forth between those ideas.
For sure. And I feel like the road, there's no place for that type of fucking bullshit. Like, I could see, like, I was going to use the term high school games, but sometimes when you're on the road and you're sitting there farting in the van and making everybody laugh and giggling, and that's some fun shit. But when it's this sort of mean girl routine, there's no place on the road for that type of bullshit. And it's depressing to hear, especially, when it's like, it's tough enough as it is being on the road as being a female and dealing with a lot of the bullshit, but just feel like there's no camaraderie, between the bands and the road, and or the the roadies or the girls who are part of the the road. Yeah, it's sad. Like, it just really broke my heart to hear that.
I mean, those girls weren't even on tour with us. This was just one night of the tour that they came to.
Really?
So it was in LA where they lived,
Mm-hmm.
and they came as the plus ones for their partners.
Mm-hmm.
I will say on the road, honestly, one of my best friends in the world, Erica, who works or she was working doing merch for us. We always try to bring her into the project just because she's such a help. She was a great advocate for me. Her and John were my biggest advocates on the road. It was all the men in my band that were really difficult. We had a girl in the band for a little bit, but she was, more so kind of, she was male centered is the word I would go for. She prioritizes the feelings of men above the women in her life, which disappointed me greatly because I protected her from the men on our touring crew. She did not know that these men were itching for a reason to scream in her face, and I would take them to another room and tell them, "Hey, scream at me instead." I was a punching bag on that tour. And it took me a long time to, process those feelings and get to a healthy place where I wasn't constantly resentful or fearful. I became agoraphobic for a bit because just the tensions of the situation, but all in all, I think it's made me a lot more confident in my performance too. I think there's this dumb meme I'm gonna reference real quick of a guy who's drunkenly eating Little Caesars pizza, and he says, Little Caesars is so good when you don't have a bitch in your ear telling you it sucks. And me and John always reference that, saying like, oh, writing music is so easy when you don't have a bitch in your ear telling you you suck, or, bantering on stage is a lot easier for me now because I don't have a guy who's gonna tell me after the show that I came across as weird or unpersonable. And I find that now I actually am able to connect with people more because I'm not so in my head about it. I just, yeah, I don't feel as insecure. And I think that the most important thing you can do as a woman in music is work with people who don't bring out your insecurities. You know, work with people who you feel actually view you as a human being and not just a woman in a band, but just like your bandmate.
I think that's kind of the beauty of the Reformation, or at least having this. It's not necessarily new anymore, but having these new members like Mars, Van, and Stamati, like these are all people that we want to just surround ourselves with because not only are they amazing musicians, but they're good people. They're good hangs. They have good morals. They're like you want to be around them. They make you feel good, and you're like, all right, these are people I want to be around, and you know, it makes life that much easier. It makes life as musicians and artists and being in this band way simpler, way easier, a lot more fun. It just brings out the best parts of all this.
Yeah.
I agree. I was going to promote. You guys got Summer School Fest coming up. Tell people who are watching this or listening to this a little bit about it.
Yeah, we're super excited about it. Just to tie back into that tour, actually, I think when when we parted ways with our old bandmates, a lot of them kind of made it sound like, we didn't deserve the opportunity to play at the Belasco because, Sasha did give us that show, and it's not because, he knew me my entire life, but it was also because he liked our music and he felt that we were, worthy of the opportunity. I'm not gonna pretend that it wasn't, like it's not like we were the most deserving people in the world, but we worked hard to get there and we did not take it for granted. And I think that our older bandmates really took all the opportunities that we had for granted, or maybe devalued them because of how we came to be signed. But what they also wouldn't acknowledge is that, we were doing this project for years before we ever, reached a point where we could speak to a label, and we played a ton of shows. We worked really hard. And so, for a while I let that get into my head, thinking, oh man, maybe I never will play a big venue like that again, because the Belasco was one of the biggest venues we ever played. We went from playing, crowds of maybe 150 tops on a good day to, 1,500. And I just remember looking out into that audience and feeling shell-shocked in a way. And I always wanted to get to a place where I could, go back to the Belasco, but with people who valued me, because I felt like, it would be really special. And when we were presented this opportunity, I almost peed my pants. I'm super excited about it. I woke John up. I shook him awake, and I was like, "Oh my God, we got offered that Summer School Fest spot that we one of we our names were thrown into the ring like way earlier this year, like late last year, I think. No, it was earlier this year when we played at we played Rock Night at the Goldfish, which is a local thing in LA. And yeah, our names got thrown into the ring for that, and I got hit up by Sierra Lyman, who is the festival organizer, and she was super cool. And I immediately accepted again without asking the band. It's the only time I won't ask for permission is when it's a really good show, because I'm like, figure it out, or
I know you're going to say yes.
I'm like, yeah, you're gonna say yes. I mean, and then I just casually drop. I'm like, hey, you guys want to play with the Belasco in June? And so that show is gonna be really exciting. We have a shorter set, so we're splitting it between older songs and our new stuff. And I think it'll be a really fun show for anybody who wants to come out. It's kind of a departure from what we usually do, just in the sense that we're kind of used to playing with more or less, bands in the same genre as us, and this one seems like a bit more of a diverse lineup. And yeah, it's all a bunch of really talented artists who've been working on their stuff for a long time, and yeah, I'm very excited about it. I'm just kind of blabbering if you guys want to say something.
Oh yeah. I think it's just going to be, we've planned the set I mean, we only have 20 minutes, which is honestly kind of fantastic. A little bit of a blessing in disguise in the sense that
We only have to play the bangers.
yeah, well, I mean,
None of the weird stuff.
not just that. I think it's going to be high octane. It's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, we're definitely going to be having a lot of fun playing
Yeah.
it. Just
Yeah.
knowing us, that's just
Yeah.
what we do.
And
But
if anybody's listening to this who plans to be at that show, if you have an inhaler I can hit after the show, I will need it.
yeah, bring some albuterol.
Mine is expired and I don't have health insurance.
Amen.
Yeah, it's our goal. If the goal is to grasp people's attention, which I think we can all agree it kind of is, especially because we're like, you know, that's an opening slot for a pretty damn good crowd. It's like a shorter set kind of lends itself to that. I mean, we're high energy. We like playing. So I think it's great when a band can like do their thing and leave people wanting more. And sometimes you're able to do that when you're allotted that 30 or more minutes, but like 25 minutes or whatever it is, like I think this is the perfect like kind of set for us. I feel like it's kind of, I don't know, it's just gonna make us dig even more into our energy and, you know.
It's the tell me about yourself of set lengths,
Yes.
you know.
It's like, quick, tell me, what do you do? And
Yeah.
then yeah.
It's essentially the equivalent of like having 5 sentences to really sell yourself to somebody.
Yes.
And honestly, I think we just want people to walk away from this going, what the fuck was that? And how can I get more?
Also making some cool shirts for it. So
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm doing a sort of Frank Frazetta 70s pulpy style medieval fantasy thing. So buy the shirts so we can
do this more.
pay our rent. That too.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think bottom line, it's just going to be a lot of fun. We're super excited to be on this bill. And yeah, if anybody's coming out, just I hope they say what's up. I hope that, you know, because I love that conversation of just being like, hey, I heard you the other day and I really dug your stuff and here's why and here's, you know, what really touched me about it and where can I see you next? And you know, that's one of my top things to do in life. I love it.
Hearing
Love
why
that
people
conversation.
love what you're doing specifically is always cool. Because sometimes it's for reasons you didn't even necessarily think about. Or just that you know you weren't thinking about in your process, and I think that's the coolest shit in the world.
Yeah,
you know, that somebody could think anything about what you're doing for a hobby, you know, technically speaking, is like important to them.
Yeah.
You know,
for sure. And what does the future hold for you guys? You know, and what can people expect coming soon with Sour Tongue?
Yeah, well, we're planning on creating a music video for a company karaoke party. Our good friend Taya over at Igloo Music recently recorded the song and she's been producing it and we just got a bounce back today, which sounds really cool so far. So yeah, we're hoping to put that out in the next few months and then we'll have an album ideally ready in, you know, early to mid 2027, depending on, you know, how much
full
we
length
can really get done. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. All right. And it's a full length album, right?
Yes, it'll be our first.
Okay, cool.
We have 3 songs already that we're feeling pretty confident about. It's kind of a little you know, dingier and heavier, but also still upbeat and fun, you know. It's a lot of yelling. It's been a stressful time, you know, a lot to yell about.
I think we're trying to come into our own now because this will be the first release as well with this full crew that we have now. Because on Final Girl, that was most of us. It was Satori, John, and Stamati on drums, then me on guitar, but I was doing both the lead and rhythm guitar on Final Girl, so I did like all that guitar. But for this one, we're actually, because now we're writing stuff with Van, who's more on like the rhythm side of things. Or I mean, it kind of depends. Actually, we actually do a lot of trading. Just I'm not a big believer in like your rhythm. Really, it can change song to song.
It's very fluid. I mean,
yeah, I'd say now that we're writing more music with Van, you guys change off a bit.
Yeah,
but I think it's kind of even hard to distinguish like a lead and a rhythm in that.
Sense,
it's because you guys are
kind of blurs those lines. If I had to like think about it like in layman's terms, like I guess you could say Van's more rhythm, more lead, but I mean that's part of the fun of it. But this what comes out next will be the first iteration of us like 5 as a group, and like also writing together as well. Because even the stuff on Final Row was a lot of ideas, except for maybe 1 or 2 that like had kind of been formed.
Yeah.
There were some older songs that
Yeah.
we had some demos for that we didn't want to go to waste. So we changed up some bits with Mars and Stamati and improved upon the songs and then recorded them. And then we wrote like an entirely new one with Mars and Stamati. That was Disappointer, which was kind of our farewell song to our old guitar player.
I love that song too. That the first track on that disc, it felt very shoegazy. Like I really liked it, and I liked that sort of that tone bend. And I was just like, oh, that feels. I love that. I love that song. It's such a great song. I love it. So, yeah. I mean, pretty much covered everything. I kind of do one last question before I let everybody go. Again, thank you so much for your time. Any words of wisdom for anybody watching this, listening to this? What words of wisdom do you have? What words of wisdom do you have?
Make something that matters to you and don't feel bad about it.
I second that.
Be unapologetic.
Yeah.
Dig into, find what you want to do, and if it doesn't work the first time, keep doing what you love to do, because the next time it just may land for a reason you don't even expect. I don't know. I'd rather make music forever with some shit that I know I want to make, or whatever your interest is, like art or whatever. Just like do your thing as long as you can for as many people as you can, and eventually, if you keep evolving and you keep learning and you keep having fun, you can't lose that way. You can never regress as an artist that way. You can only progress.
If that's your goal, you'll never fail that way.
No, you can.
And never use AI. It's killing the planet, and it sucks, and it's ugly, and it doesn't sound good. There's nothing good to come from AI. And I'll tell you this right now, even with show flyers, if I see a band, like a local band, put out a announcement that they're playing a show and they use AI in the flyer, I'm just not going. I would rather you go on MS Paint and you draw an ugly little stick figure with a weird wiener and say, come to my show.
I would love that. I would actually be extremely drawn.
Exactly. Then see an AI flyer, because it shows me that if you don't care enough about other forms of art, because I think for me, I take this a little more personally just because I do physical art as well as, music. I've dabbled in a lot of different stuff. I went to school for video game design and stuff, but I think using AI and considering yourself an artist is such an affront. I've seen a lot of musicians who are vehemently anti-AI online, but still use AI to promote their music by making videos or, like I said, flyers or album art with AI. And I just think that when you devalue one single element of your work, even if it has nothing to do with the music, it just comes across as disingenuous, It's
supposed to come from you.
Yeah, go outside, take a photo, mess around with it in your camera settings or something, and use that as an album cover. If you don't know how to use digital editing tools, hit me up on Instagram. I'll tell you how to do it. Just don't use AI.
Also, to add on that, for anybody who does use AI in any sort of capacity, I challenge you to not only look inward and ask yourself why you do this, but I also challenge you to take whatever you were using it for, try it yourself.
Yeah.
If that doesn't work, ask someone you may know, a friend, even a stranger. Oh, hey, I know Brad does art. I'll ask him. Try that, and you will be immensely satisfied with the results.
You'll always know a guy who knows a guy.
In worst case, you gain a new skill by becoming better at that thing, or possibly discovering a new interest, or someone who does it. Like, you can only improve your own abilities by trying. So why wouldn't you do that?
There is no reason to replace creativity and community with a burgeoning technology that takes that all away. So, that would be my closing remark on
I
that.
don't want to listen to your album brought to us by Palantir.
Amen.
Do it yourself.
Amen.
Yeah,
Worth the wait.
those are my parting words. Do it yourself, you know.
Fuck
Thank
ice
you
cream.
guys so much. I encourage everybody who's watching this, listening to this, check out Sour Tongue on Bandcamp. Again, you can stream them if you want, but if you like the music, please buy their music on Bandcamp. All the money goes to them. Yeah, anything else you want me to add before I let you guys go?
I don't think I got anything. Do you guys?
Follow on social medias and everything like that. Keep
All the bullshit.
Yeah.
It's at Sour
Tongue Band.
but there's an underscore.
Yes, Sour_Tongue Band.
Yes.
And yeah, thank you so much for having us. We had a blast talking about
Thank you
horror
so much.
movies, and
appreciate it.